Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, September 20th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. There is encouraging news tonight in the fight against COVID-19. Hope for parents with very young children. Pfizer today announced its COVID vaccine is safe for children 5 to 11 years of age. KPBS education reporter MG Perez has the story.
Good job, buddy. Okay, just be nice and still.
4-year-old Max Martinez got a swab up his nose this morning. He's had a sore throat for the past couple of days, and he's being tested for COVID.
It felt like that it was tickling.
Yeah. Did it hurt? No.
Max has 2 older brothers and a younger sister, and his mother wants to make sure he's not infected. Like many parents in the Chula Vista Elementary School District, Kendra Peters brought her child here to this testing center, which is usually the boardroom for the district's trustees. Since late July, it's been converted to test as many people as possible for COVID-19. The district has 28,000 students under the age of 12.
Most of our students, the overwhelming majority of our students, are not vaccinated. So our life has really revolved around providing ample testing.
News that the Pfizer vaccine could be available for children 5 to 11 years old is welcomed.
We want to protect our kids. It's kind of scary out there with the Delta variant, and the faster they can get this approved and, we know that it's safe, it's coming from Pfizer and the FDA approves it, we're in.
Jacqueline Gonzalez doesn't see it that way. She is a single mother who is not vaccinated yet, raising 2 daughters, 8 and 9 years old, who could qualify for the Pfizer shots.
When it's not fully FDA approved and it's in the emergency status, I don't feel comfortable. If worst case scenario, I have to remove my children from in classroom, I will do it.
The proposed Pfizer shot in young arms is not a full adult dose. In fact, it's only about a third of the COVID vaccine. It would be administered twice, 3 weeks apart. Dr. Steven Spector is an infectious disease and pediatrics expert at UC San Diego Health Center.
Based on the adult data and based on the data in children who are older than 12 years of age, one would expect that there would be very few adverse effects that lasted for a prolonged period of time.
If approved by the FDA, the Pfizer shot could be ready for young children under the age of 11 by Halloween. MG Perez, KPBS News.
And we'll have more on the Pfizer vaccine for kids in a few minutes on Evening Edition. Coming up, how many parents in a new survey say they're planning to get their children vaccinated? An FDA advisory committee says booster shots are not needed for all Americans, at least not yet. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman spoke to an expert about what the decision means and who is being recommended for additional doses.
What they basically said is, we are not ready. There isn't enough data saying that each and every American who's been vaccinated should get a booster dose.
Dr. Francesca Torriani is an infectious disease expert at UC San Diego Health. She says the FDA panel did recommend Pfizer booster doses for those over 65, people with underlying medical conditions, and those working in high-risk settings like healthcare.
They were very deliberate in really concentrating on that population. And I think that is a reasonable thing to do.
Torriani says the good news is that data shows the Pfizer vaccine still offers great protection months after vaccination for most people. And there's a specific reason boosters are being recommended for those over 65.
The ability to produce neutralizing antibodies when we're older is, and that we've seen with the influenza vaccines and other vaccines, is not as good.
Later this week, a CDC advisory committee will take up the issue of booster shots, meaning by the end of the week, federal health officials could officially give the go-ahead for seniors and healthcare workers to start getting them.
We are ready, so our hospital is ready to go as soon as we have approval.
One thing to keep in mind, currently federal regulators are just looking at booster approval for the Pfizer vaccine. That means if you got Moderna, you'll have to wait a little bit longer. Toriani says those who got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine will be able to get Pfizer boosters. She also says regulators need to take into consideration the world's vaccination supply when discussing booster doses.
How are we distributing vaccine to other countries, right? Because in the end, it has to be global coverage and not simply in my backyard coverage, right, that will end this pandemic.
The immunocompromised are already eligible for Pfizer booster doses. Toriani says it's not out of the question that when more data comes in, boosters could be recommended more broadly. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Yet another grim milestone reached today. More people in the U.S. have now died from COVID-19 than in the 1918 flu pandemic. Johns Hopkins University reports more than 675,400 people in the U.S. have died from the coronavirus. That's about one person out of every 500. The CDC says there were roughly 675,000 fatalities from the 1918 flu. That broke down to 1 out of every 150 people due to the smaller population. It appears the days of full COVID coverage are over, leaving patients recovering from long hospital stays with sticker shock. As a Kaiser Family Foundation analysis found that 72% of health insurance plans were no longer waiving out-of-pocket costs for COVID treatment. That means most patients are now responsible for their full deductibles and copays. The foundation expects the trend to continue, with patients taking on more of their treatment costs. The U.S. has once again extended its non-essential ground travel restrictions with Canada and Mexico. KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel has more on the impact border restrictions have had in San Ysidro.
White House COVID-19 response coordinator Jeff Zients says border restrictions with Canada and Mexico will extend through October 21st. The restrictions were first placed in March of last year, and since then, it's been a series of monthly extensions. Carlos Guerrero is the store owner of Elite Tactical in San Ysidro.
I would get a lot of Mexican cops since I do sell tactical gear, so boots and holsters and clothes, that kind of stuff. Since the pandemic and the borders closed, it's been not a lot of movement, but luckily they do have a lot of friends that come shop for them now.
But it's nothing compared to the traffic he used to get. San Ysidro's Chamber of Commerce Director Jason Wells says businesses are suffering.
I'm tired of the grim reality of things we can't control. So what we can control is going here forward and what we can do for our businesses. So, we put out a recovery plan for San Ysidro.
Part of that plan includes a pilot project to help businesses put their stores online. The chamber is still finding ways to fund the program.
From March of 2020 till now, we're looking at the loss of about 270 businesses.
The chamber has made countless attempts to reach out to the White House, but Wells says all their letters have gone unanswered.
I've never seen a political decision affect a community, and that community have no representation whatsoever in Washington.
He's hoping October 21st will be the cutoff date for the travel ban.
That 250 number of lost businesses could double or triple with the lack of one more holiday season.
The White House announced Monday that starting in November, it plans to ease restrictions for fully vaccinated foreigners, but it only applies to air travelers. Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
Travelers from Europe and the United Kingdom may be able to visit the U.S. for the holidays. The White House COVID-19 response coordinator says starting in November, President Biden plans to lift the strict bans on non-essential travel. Adult visitors from the region would have to show proof of full vaccination to travel to the U.S. The delay in lifting the restriction is supposed to give agencies and airlines time to prepare. The United Nations is concerned that this week's meeting could be a COVID super spreader event. Leaders from 193 countries will meet in New York City tomorrow for the UN General Assembly. The UN has asked that anyone who enters its chamber be vaccinated, but vaccinations are not required. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio had a message for unvaccinated leaders, specifically Brazil's president.
We need to send a message to all the world leaders, including most notably Bolsonaro from Brazil, that if you intend to come here, you need to be vaccinated. If you don't want to be vaccinated, don't bother coming.
The city has opened a pop-up testing and vaccination site outside UN headquarters. Experts note that there is an inequality of vaccine access worldwide. According to the World Health Organization, more than 5.5 billion vaccines have been administered globally, but 73% of those doses went to just 10 countries. Some 14,000 migrants have gathered along the Texas-Mexico border waiting for processing and possible entry into the U.S. As Chris Nguyen shows us, the conditions are raising concerns of a humanitarian and public health crisis.
At the southern U.S. border in Del Rio, Texas, tightly packed migrants are sleeping in the dirt surrounded by garbage and with minimal access to food and water. A recent swell in numbers overwhelming U.S. Border Patrol.
We're working around the clock to expeditiously move migrants out of the heat elements and from underneath this bridge.
As of Saturday, there were more than 14,000 migrants on site, many of them Haitian. Haiti is still reeling from a major earthquake last month, as well as the assassination of its president in July.
We need multiple countries, coming together, and so we need to work collaboratively. But this is a crisis that is bigger than just one country. This is a regional crisis.
Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas traveled to Texas Monday to assess the situation.
Irregular migration, the perilous journey, is not the journey to take. One risks one's life, the life of one's loved ones, for a mission that will not succeed.
DHS says it plans to ramp up deportation flights to Haiti and other destinations to deter migrants from traveling to Del Rio. The department also announced that Customs and Border Protection will send 600 agents and officers to the region by Tuesday.
We will continue to exercise the public health authority of the Centers for Disease Control in light of the fact that this country and this world is confronting a pandemic.
In Washington, Chris Nguyen, KPBS News.
Whether it's here in San Diego or across the country, we are beginning to hear the stories from the thousands of Afghani refugees who made it to the U.S. Reporter Marissa Perlman looks at how some are adapting to life in California.
I'm very happy here.
Rafi Sherzad is one of thousands of Afghani refugees who has made a home in this ardent community.
When we came here, we don't speak English, and also we have 4 kids.
He says he still struggles with the language barrier, but his 4 kids, all learning English in school, help him. Rafi says he's met dozens of new Afghani families who have escaped Kabul in the past few weeks, many staying in nearby hotels because there's still not enough housing for the influx of refugees.
It's too hard now, and especially in California.
Integrating into California's lifestyle wasn't easy for Samim Nouri. It took him 6 months after he left a dangerous situation in Afghanistan 4 years ago to find a job and build a life for his family.
When I there, I have a home, I have a car, I have everything. When you come back to United States, I start from zero to now.
And families are still arriving every day here in Sacramento. Resettlement agencies like World Relief are here to help, but call it a difficult situation for the thousands of new arrivals in California who are walking into a housing shortage.
That process of integration is slowed down just due to the instability of the housing.
San Diego is partnering with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to tackle homelessness. The House America Partnership is intended to rehouse and build additional homes for those experiencing homelessness. It's funded through the American Rescue Plan. San Diego received 480 emergency housing vouchers and $21 million in grants. Through federal, state, and local dollars, the city plans to rehouse more than 2,000 households and start development on over 1,000 and new units of affordable housing by the end of 2022. A move is being made to protect workers and communities from extreme heat. President Biden says he is mobilizing a large-scale government effort to help those in need. The move comes after a dangerously hot summer that spurred an onslaught of drought, worsened wildfires, and caused hundreds of deaths from the Pacific Northwest to hurricane-ravaged Louisiana. Among the efforts, help people purchase air conditioning and help pay electric bills. Heat is the leading cause of weather-related deaths in the United States.
For now, it's business as usual here across Southern California, but later in the week, we're going to watch as our next storm system arrives, and that's likely going to bring some cooler temperatures and also the possibility of some showers and storms, especially into the interior sections here of Southern California. As we move into tonight, temperatures fall back into the upper 50s in Escondido and upper 50s in Oceanside, mid-60s for you in San Diego, Borrego Springs, falling off to about 74 for that overnight low. Then tomorrow we're back up into the low 80s for some of the coastal regions, so still a little bit above average for this time of year. 101 in Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna getting up to 73 degrees. But again, we'll still stay warm for Tuesday, Wednesday. By Thursday and Friday, we'll start to see some changes here in the forecast. For now, high pressure is in control. This upper level high, the heat continues to build Tuesday and Wednesday here, but really doesn't last for all that long. Near the coast, you'll notice temperatures get up into the mid-80s by the time we get to Wednesday. Plenty of sunshine there, but after that, temperatures fall back down to the upper 70s Thursday and Friday. By Saturday, we're sitting in the mid-70s. Now, it doesn't look like we're going to get much moisture near the coast, but you should see at least an increase in the cloud cover here for the later part of the week and as we head into the weekend. Further inland, temperatures fall off from the low 90s here for your Tuesday and Wednesday, back into the mid to upper 80s on Thursday. Friday and Saturday, we'll be back into the low 80s here, so a little bit more of a dramatic temperature drop here. And again, a little bit of some increase in cloud cover here Friday and moving into Saturday. In the mountains, temperatures fall off from the low 70s Tuesday and Wednesday, back into the low to mid 60s Friday and Saturday. And we do have the possibility for some storms Thursday and Friday with just partly sunny skies there in the forecast for your Saturday. In the deserts, temperatures fall out of the triple digits back into the upper 90s, and there is that possibility of a couple of stray storms in the forecast. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Jessica Pash.
A bright spot amid the ongoing firefight in Northern California. 4 famous giant sequoias were not harmed by a wildfire that reached the edge of giant forest in Sequoia National Park. The trees, known as the 4 Guardsmen, were protected from the KPBS complex fire. One of them, known as General Sherman, is the world's largest tree. Park rangers removed dry brush from the area and wrapped special fire-resistant aluminum material around the bases of the trees.
Primary focus is on protection of the communities and always will be, and that's where most of the firefighting efforts are focused. But we do have a special team of resource managers led by park staff that is focused on protection of the sequoias while the firefighters deal with the main threat of the fire.
The KPBS complex fire has burned over 21,000 acres within the park's footprint and is 0% contained. Almost half of teens in the U.S. are fully vaccinated. That's according to data released by the CDC. As of now, about 46% of all 12 to 17-year-olds have gotten both shots. More than 14 million people in that age group have gotten at least one dose. And as we reported earlier, a version of Pfizer's vaccine could soon be available to kids aged 5 to 11. Here's Mandy Gaither.
For the first time, results released for a COVID-19 vaccine in children ages 5 to 11. Pfizer says their trial reveals it's safe for that age group.
I think this is going to make a huge difference in the fight against COVID-19.
The data has not yet been peer-reviewed or published, but Pfizer says the results show the vaccine is both safe and effective in younger children. The trial used a 2-dose regimen of the vaccine given 3 weeks apart and used a smaller dose than has been used for those 12 and older.
So many parents have been waiting for exactly this news, especially given what's happening now with the Delta variant. I mean, there have been nearly 500,000 new cases in children in the last 2 weeks.
Pfizer says it plans to submit the data to the FDA for emergency use authorization soon. Once that's done, the agency could authorize a vaccine for younger children in a matter of weeks. A recent Kaiser Family Foundation poll showed about a quarter of parents with children ages 5 to 11 said they would vaccinate their child right away once a vaccine is authorized. But 4 in 10 parents said they would wait and see how the vaccine is working.
What I would say to parents is definitely look at the data, do your own research, examine the safety data, listen to your pediatrician.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
For the latest on the pandemic and resources, check out the Tracking COVID-19 section at kpbs.org, and you can get there by clicking the link on our homepage. Deep in the basement of the Kellogg Library at Cal State San Marcos sits a treasure trove of San Diego beer history. It's known as the Brewkive, and it's the only one dedicated to San Diego's brewing industry. As KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen shows us, San Diego brewing history runs deep.
Well, it's no secret that San Diego loves its craft beer, but not many people know that the history of San Diego brewing sits inside that building right there.
It's known as the Brewkive, and it's the only one dedicated to San Diego's brewing scene. Located deep in the basement of Kellogg Library, it's a treasure trove of the region's beer history. There are bottle caps, coasters, tap handles, and more. And here's the lady whose job it is to archive them all.
I'm Judith Downey, and I am the History and Special Collections Librarian at Cal State San Marcos.
She's also the curator of the Brewkive, but most people just know her as.
And they'll say, oh, you're the beer historian. And, they're always fascinated. I always try to have some kind of little hidden gem of knowledge that, either busts a myth or corrects a misperception.
One of the most popular misconceptions about San Diego's brewing industry is that it started in the 1980s, but it all started in 1868 with Christian Dupler's San Diego Brewing Company.
This is kind of a secured storage area.
As Downey walks around the collection, showing off things she's collected or people have donated to the archive, you can sense how much she loves her work.
I've also got things like, and I keep saying this is the CSUSM collection, but I feel so invested in this because it's such a passion for me that I always say my collection, and it's really not.
The collection has pint glasses adorned with logos and artworks from various brewers. Some have gone out of business, others show the evolution of their logos. And the collection keeps on growing.
That's about it for this room. We do have another room down on the other end of the building that I'll take you to.
The idea for the Brewkive started as early as 2015, around the time when Cal State San Marcos was starting its beer-making certificate program, dubbed Ingebeering. It was the brainchild of Jennifer Fabi. She's the dean of the university library. As the San Diego craft beer scene exploded into a billion-dollar industry, Fabi thought it was a good idea to preserve that history. Because, as it turns out, nobody in town was.
We knew that in order to do that, we would need some resources, and we wanted to make sure that we had a collection that was very exciting to both the public and also to those internal to the university.
Fabi formed an advisory group comprised of local brewers and a filmmaker who's done a documentary on San Diego brewing to see what the archive should collect. It was the advisory group that came up with the name.
At first, we called it the Barchive because, of course, that rhymes with archive. But those people on the advisory committee, they said that won't do. Brewkive is better. So we trademarked Brewkive.
The Brewkive also benefited because a lot of brewers are passionate about their beers, so they collect a lot of keepsakes. Such as Greg Cook, the founder of Stone Brewing. He donated more than 600 Bankers boxes full of stuff to the archive.
I collected a lot of stuff from Stone history along the way, and by a lot of stuff I mean a lot of stuff, as well as from other craft breweries and places I've been, etc., etc. And I had just been collecting this in a spare room in my house, and it was overwhelmed. It was packed. I had so much stuff.
So when he was approached by the Brewkive, he jumped at the idea. He called it a symbiotic relationship. The Brewkive gets to preserve the collection, and he gets it out of the house. It's the largest donation to the Brewkive to date, though Downey says the collection is on permanent loan from Cook. While the majority of the Brewkive is dedicated to what Downey calls the third wave of San Diego brewing, the period from 1987 until 2020. She is now working on the fourth wave, the post-pandemic period. Downey is also working on preserving the history of women's involvement in the San Diego brewing industry.
I'm really trying to get women's stories because women's history is still not well represented.
Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
And here's another look at today's top stories. We are awaiting a decision by the CDC after an FDA advisory committee recommended Pfizer booster doses for those over 65 or at high risk of COVID-19. If you got the Moderna vaccine, you'll have to wait a little longer for a booster shot. However, those who got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine will be able to get the Pfizer boosters. And the non-essential ground travel restrictions with Canada and Mexico have been extended again for another month. The San Ysidro Chamber of Commerce says since the restrictions started in March of 2020, about 270 businesses have closed their doors for good. The Chamber's executive director is hoping restrictions will be lifted October 21st in time for the holiday season. The moon will be a sight to behold tonight, and you're not going to want to miss it. That's because the harvest moon will appear larger than normal and orange in color. It may even seem like there are full moons on consecutive days. Its proximity to the horizon gives it that orange color. NASA says during the days before and after the harvest moon, the moonrise will happen within about 30 minutes across the country. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.